The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, yesterday advised the People's Democratic Party against fielding either former President Goodluck Jonathan or former Governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, as its presidential candidate in 2027. The minister stated that nominating Jonathan carried a constitutional danger tied to Section 137, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, which he suggested could bar anyone sworn in twice as president from contesting again. According to him, the same scenario will apply to Obi, arguing that the PDP is in a dilemma because it committed an original sin in 2023 by lacking the wherewithal to zone its presidential ticket to the south. Still on the 2027 polls, a former governor of Kaduna State and key member of the new African Democratic Congress, Nasir El-Rufai, has predicted that Tinubu will suffer a major humiliation in the 2027 election if he's on the ballot, saying at best, the president will come third in the first round of the election, leading to a runoff without the president. Also, political tension is rising in Kaduna State after the African Democratic Congress disowned a controversial event linked to former Governor Nasir El-Rufai, while the police launched an investigation into allegations of violence and gunfire at the gathering. In a statement issued on Saturday and signed by the ADC Kaduna State Publicity Secretary, Engineer Musa Idris, the party dismissed the so-called official inauguration ceremony of the Kaduna State APC, PDP, SDP, LP, NNPP to ADC Transition Committee. Meanwhile, the Kaduna State Police Command has suspended all unauthorized political gatherings across the state following the violence that broke out at the meeting. Spokesman for the command, Mansour Hassan, in a statement, said the action was necessary to forestall further breakdown of law and order after thugs attacked and injured participants at the meeting. Now let's move on to Rivers State. The All Progressives Congress won 20 of the 23 local government areas in Saturday's chairmanship and councillorship elections. The ruling party in the state, the People's Democratic Party, on the other hand, won only 3 local government areas in the poll conducted by the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. Governor Siminalayi Fubara also lost his Opobo Nko local government area to the main opposition party in the state. This comes as the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Wike, says Governor Siminalayi Fubara and members of the State House of Assembly will return on September 18 when the state of emergency in Rivers will elapse. Now, due to the outcome of the Rivers LG elections, FCT Minister and former Governor of Rivers State, Wike, has regained his political influence in the state after a prolonged face-off with his successor, Siminalayi Fubara. The minister recaptured the local government structure on Saturday following the election conducted in the 23 local government areas of the state by the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. The elections were held at a political crisis that had torn the state apart. In the run-up to the Saturday polls, Wike's loyalists and former People's Democratic Party stalwarts defected to the Chief Tony Okocha-led All Progressives Congress and picked the party's ticket to contest the elections. The move, according to analysts, was to allow Wike to take control of both the PDP and the APC ahead of the 2027 general elections in the state. Joining us on Political Brief to discuss these stories is Arise Director of News and Politics Editor, Sumner Sambo. Good morning, Sumner. A good day to be here with us. A number of stories to get through and a number of, interesting controversies in some parts. So great to have you with us on the show today. All right,
good morning, Ayo. Good morning.
Okay, all right, so let's go straight in. Your review,
all of us.
Your review of Saturday's elections in Rivers State. A number of things, and also, I'm very interested in also what former Governor El-Rufai says, that President Tinubu is going to come third at best at the 2027 elections. What do you think about those two? Your review and, of course, your take on that statement that President Tinubu is going to do quite poorly in the elections come 2027.
All right, for what happened in Rivers State, you wouldn't blame Nyesom Wike for what he did. It's a sort of retaliatory election against what suspended Governor Fubara had done last year in October last year, when, of course, you would have seen that APP, the Action People's Party, won 22 out of 23 local government areas in that election that was conducted. And now Wike is winning 20 out of 23. Now, 20 was given to the APC, in whose government he's serving, and then 3 actually went to his PDP, in quote, that he's officially known with. I mean, take a critical look at the results that came out from that election. You discover that, I mean, a whole lot of analysts are beginning to question what exactly is happening. Governor Fubara in the last election won, in 2023 general election, won the elections in the overall state with about 300 and something thousand. And then look at Obiakpo, for example, Obiakpo local government area, and you see the results that are coming there. So does that mean that only that local government has the same sort of results that returned the governor of the entire state into place in the 2023 general election, although that election was conducted by INEC? Well, you will see that in everything that has happened here, Nyesom Wike has just decided to take the structures back. And there was no pushback from Governor Fubara and his loyalists, because it looks like this was the agreement reached between himself and President Bola Tinubu in the second attempt at reconciling them. And then, of course, you will see that some people, after this outcome of the election, eventually will go ahead to call Nyesom Wike the Governor General of Rivers State, because he's taking back the structures, and it's like everything seems to be working perfectly well for him. And we haven't heard so much from the opposition. Are we saying that other political parties didn't take part in this election? If they did, where are they? Why are they not saying so much? But to be fair to Nyesom Wike, he needed to fight back, because the structures he has always complained about that was taken away from him by Governor Fubara needed to be returned to him. And left to him, Fubara should have been history today, because he wanted to go for the jugular, for Fubara to be impeached. But that didn't happen. So this sort of like looks like a win-win between both parties. And so for Rivers State, I don't really have any major issue than to say, other than to say that it's also an indictment on the sort of democratic credentials of the APC-led federal government, which is led by President Bola Tinubu, because this will actually give us an insight into what may happen in 2027. And people are saying that if the local government elections that are closest to the grassroots are not being allowed to actually function well, State Independent Electoral Commission, quotes, are not being independent enough, then it looks like 2027 may actually just be a situation whereby there will be a voter apathy. So let's begin to take our democracy serious, because if we continue this way, there may be a serious challenge ahead of us. So the democratic credentials of the APC-led federal government is what people will be looking at, because there were complaints that the security forces were just standing aloof while some people were thumbprinting and doing so many things. Now, if you juxtapose this with what happened with the recent by-election outcome, then, of course, the call for huge electoral reforms is one that we should focus on.
Sumner.
And that's why I've been appealing to Nigerians over time to look at the next INEC chairman that will be coming. Let's set a new template. Let's not allow only the executive to be the decider. I'll be looking forward to your second question.
So Sumner, so there's already a problem of voter apathy, and there is going to be in 2027 because of what we're seeing. I mean, Sumner, I wanted to ask you about what happened in just 5 polling units in Zamfara State, where the elections were overly militarized. And you had military officials go there just for 5, just because APC was there and they wanted APC to take the day. Then secondly, this one. I mean, Sumner, how do you explain 328,000? This man even got more votes than President Tinubu in Rivers State in the last presidential election. So how do you explain this away? And are you not justifying the hypocrisy of our politicians by saying that Wike had to revenge? Because these are all the things Wike complained about for Fubara that he too is doing today. And are you not justifying the hypocrisy to the extent that the Supreme Court was quick to give Wike a judgment on the chairmanship election thing, but till date, the case brought before the Supreme Court for the state of emergency have not been heard, and I'm not sure will be heard until the state of emergency elapses. Sumner, is this democracy or jococracy?
Well, I mean, let's start from that court issue you talked about. Now, there's the accusation that was slammed against Governor Fubara when he conducted the election in October last year, that the 90 days notice was not properly given by RISEC, that's the State Independent Electoral Commission in Rivers State. Now, but we are seeing similar things happening under this, and it looks like nothing really happened. Now, there's a court judge, there's a case in court right now in Rivers State, which is going to actually be tied to the issue you talked about in the Supreme Court as to the state of emergency. Now, that court case, a lawyer went to court to ask, does President Tinubu and the Attorney General of the Federation, do both of them have the powers to appoint a resident, a chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission? And does he have the power to conduct local government election? Because by the Rivers State military administrator appointing the person who is there right now as the RISEC, in charge of the RISEC, it means that it's President Bola Tinubu that actually appointed him to conduct the election. So what that gentleman lawyer is asking the court is, he's asking the court, does President Tinubu or the Attorney General have the powers to appoint someone to conduct an election in Rivers State? Though the second leg of that, of some of the reliefs that he had sought was for this election not to be allowed to hold on August 30th. But of course, that was not allowed by the court. But that first leg of his demand is actually before the court. So, of course, when the court does rule, the Rivers State High Court does rule on this, we will discover whether indeed it is not part of the legal gymnastics that we are seeing. Because people are beginning to wonder what has happened, and the Supreme Court has not gone ahead to actually hear that case. And then Wike going ahead to say that by 18th of September, yes, that the democratic structures will be fully restored, so that both the local government and then the state democratic apparatus will be fully completed in Rivers
yes.
State. And so these are the sort of questions that people are asking the federal government, because whether you like it or not, President Bola Tinubu is the one fully in charge of Rivers State, with the sole administrator just acting based on the powers that were given to him.
There you go. Well, speaking of the president, sorry to interrupt you there, Sumner. I know we're running out of time, but before we go, you did mention political gymnastics there, and of course you just mentioned the president. So I just want you to give us your thoughts on what the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, had to say when he talks about the legal rigmarole around whether or not should the PDP or any party choose to field former President Goodluck Jonathan. He talked about how that could be in violation of certain laws. Do you agree with his stance? Is there a political issue that they may need to scale over? What are your thoughts as it pertains to what the Minister of Aviation had to say regarding the legality of another presidency behind Goodluck Jonathan?
All right, Femi, I mean, Keyamo himself is a senior advocate of Nigeria, and he knows that the laws of Nigeria cannot be applied retroactively. And that's why he himself said it would be too risky. I mean, so when you put it that it will be too risky, it's left in the realm of conjecture. And so as it stands right now, there's no law, I mean, generally, by our own analysis, that we can say outright that former President Goodluck Jonathan will not be allowed to contest. That's section 137, subsection 3 that he's talking about. It's still left open until the Supreme Court decides on it. What stands right now is that former President Goodluck Jonathan can be allowed to actually contest the election. So that's why he qualified it by saying that it would be too risky. And that's why you see that people are also complaining that Festus Keyamo should actually concentrate on his job and help his principal, President Bola Tinubu, to focus on governance that will help them qualify much more for the votes of Nigerians in the 2027 general election. Because if you would have heard what Malam Nasir El-Rufai has said, that with the likelihood of the anger that Nigerians have against the APC-led federal government, that President Tinubu may come third. But of course, Nasir El-Rufai himself, I think he's promoting himself too much. Why will you say that someone who is in power, who has the apparatus of state, and with what we have seen in the by-election, seen in the Rivers State, election, that the president will not do so much? I would doubt that he will come third, but maybe second, or him winning the election. Because if you take a look at what has been happening now, the institutions of state in Nigeria are not strong enough to withstand the powers of the president. Look at how the police has been acting in this recent election. The militarization of the Zamfara state election you talked about, Rufai. What makes us think that these same things will not play up in 2027? And what makes us also think that the opposition will not go into the 2027 election disunited, giving room for the APC to actually win the election?
All right, very important
points made. The opposition leader should be very, very clear in their imaginations.
Well, very important points made. A lot to think about in terms of the direction of our democracy and what 2027 election will look like, especially as it affects the people's willingness to come out to exercise their franchise. Thank you so much for your time with us this morning, Sumner. We look forward to seeing you again next week, Monday.